So in this top section, we would focus on the common mistakes done in your CSAT paper. Now definitely when you are in pressure, you have time limitation, the passages are big, you have to work in a constant pressure, and at that time there are some common mistakes that we commit. So what are those mistakes? Let's look into those. I have selected few of the questions where we have faced such an issue. Now, this is a question on data sufficiency. Note, data sufficiency has become an important part of your CSAT examination recently. Lots and lots of questions coming from data sufficiency. Here, what was the common mistake? The common mistake is the question says what day is the 14th of a given month. Now, when you are asked what day is the 14th, you can simply say, looking at the first statement, your first answer would be yes. By this statement, when I know the last day is Wednesday, I can calculate what would be the day on the 14th of the month. But we don't know which month. The month is not mentioned. It's not June, July, August. So we don't know whether it is 30 days, 31 days or 28 days. And therefore, if this is Wednesday, we cannot calculate what was the day on 14th of the month. Okay, so that is a common mistake. So be very careful about the language of the question, and that's why this is a tricky question, I would say. Also, consider this: if it was not given the last day, but if it was given the first day, then this statement would definitely suffice. But in this case, the first statement does not suffice just because of this specific reason that we have mentioned. Preeti has a request about analysis for paper 1, subject wise, topic wise, and then strategy. Definitely, Preeti, we would be covering that in the next live session. Today, we are specifically dedicated to CSAT paper 2. Okay, the next question, because for CSAT there were many questions and controversies that came up. Now here, note, when there are statements like this, you have blue and blue here, so the middle term is repeated. Now this is a problem which is studied under syllogism. The only correct way to solve is using a 3-Venn diagram. No other method, be it any book, be it any lecture that you are referring, is a right method to solve syllogism problem except the 3-Venn diagram that we have mentioned. So just follow the video series, the 3 videos that we have covered on syllogism, and that would cover the complete part of it. Anonymous is mentioned about paper 1. Yes, so if you are talking about GS paper 1, the general studies section, we would be covering that in the next live session, the strategies and the important things you need to know. For this session, we are specifically focused on CSAT paper 2, and that's what I have already mentioned to Amrita as well. Then the next important thing in this question is when this statement begins with some and some, okay, the conclusions cannot be in all or none, because we are not confident. If it was all or no, there can be conclusions with all or no. But if the statement follows with some and some, if both of them are some, even if one was all, there can be a chance that we could have a possibility with all combination. But when it is some and some, there is no way that the conclusion can be all or none. So one important thing that you need to have into account here. Syllogism problems we have covered exclusively detailed, so refer those for sure. The next is the question that was a pie diagram. Now this was a very simple mistake that I did, and that is while responding to the question, you calculated 70 plus 16 plus p is equal to 100. You found out p as 14 and then the percentage is 14 by 100 into 360. But what you missed is the fact that the question asks about both protein and the dry element. Okay, so I cannot just calculate protein, I have to add the dry element as well. Okay, so the dry element and the protein is important, so we have to take both the values into account. Okay, so that was another important thing that you need to mention. So make sure that you don't do silly mistakes. Okay, if protein and dry element constitute to p, okay, it's not just the protein. Okay, so protein plus the dry element that we have calculated here, okay, constitutes 2p, then what would be the central angle? Okay, so there are three things which are distributed as per the pie diagram. So this is protein, dry element, and other dry element and water. Okay, now the question asks about two of those. So in hurry, you can just calculate one of that and find that as the answer. So don't do that mistake. The next is, here again, what was the problem? When 7/8 job is completed in 21 days, I find out the value for one job, which is 21 into 8 by 7. Okay, now what is the problem? So this is 24 days. I have increased my quantum by 50%. Now 12 added to it, so 24, half of it is 12. I add 12 to it, so it's 36. Now I have to find out only how many more days are required. Now you might get confused when it is asking about more days. You might subtract from 36 this 24, but you need to take into account that the value given here is 21. So you have to subtract 21 and not 24. A common mistake again. Clear? Take a note of it. The next question was here. Lots and lots of queries, lots and lots of comments asking clarification on this, and I don't know why there is so much confusion despite the fact it is clearly mentioned it is on a straight line. Why you students are taking triangle as an option? Because we are not reading the question carefully. Okay, so a common mistake. Read the question carefully. Every word of the question counts, and that counts on your percentage as well. So it's not a case of triangle. Students have included triangle. Don't include triangle as a case. Why? Because it is mentioned on a straight line. So on a straight line, only one combination can come. So when you are including triangle, students are mentioning two possible compositions, but that composition is not possible because the question says they should be on a straight line. I'm not solving each and every question here. We have solved that separately. So those who want to go into the details of that can watch the videos separately. The idea here is to pick what was the missing link and where the common mistakes occur. So when you commit a mistake, you are only confined to yourself. But when you look onto the mistakes that others have committed as well, and I myself did while solving the paper, you get a broader outlook. What are the common mistakes that we commit? Okay. Now here on the chessboard question, how many different ways the 6 consecutive squares can be chosen? The first mistake is chessboard is 64 squares. So some of the students got confused how many squares would be along the diagonal because they consider it as 8 by 8. So some of you started to immediately find out the Pythagoras. By Pythagoras, the number of squares. No. The number of the diagonal squares which are present here would again be 8 because we are counting onto the squares. Okay, that's the first mistake in this question. The second mistake in this question is, so this mistake is a silly mistake because you are wasting your time. Students started drawing the grid, okay, 8 by 8 grid, I will first draw and then see how many squares come in the diagonal. No, don't waste time there because if it is a 8 by 8 grid and you are cutting it in the squares, then again you would have 8 squares in the diagonal side. Now, what has to be important is, you are asked about 6 consecutive squares. So you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7 and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 as the consecutive length. Now, what is the issue here? The issue here is we counted along the one diagonal only. A lot of students counted it along one diagonal. You have to count it along both the diagonals. Clear? So make sure that you are not missing the other diagonal as well. Another common mistake. The next question where we saw common mistakes was, now this is a little absurd question because it asks about the images of the consonant of English alphabet, capitals as observed in mirror. Now, as I mentioned in the class as well, I can have various ways of writing Y. I can write capital Y as this and capital Y as this. No, there is no one standard way in which we actually depict Y. So a lot of places, most of the places you would see this as Y, but also you see this as a Y. Okay, if this is a Y, then its mirror image is possible. If this is a Y, the mirror image is not possible. But when there is a question like this, don't get confused with exceptions. Try to follow the most common path, which is this as Y, which is commonly used to represent Y. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Amrita. Coming on to the next question. Here you have to sum up the digits so that their sum is 10. What is the most common mistake we received from students? 700, okay, 730 I can do. In the series of 800, 820. In the series of 910. In the series of 1000. Very quick answer. But you did a mistake here. What was the mistake? 1 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is not 10. It is 1. So be very careful. Hurriedly we do such mistakes. But this is not the sum of the digits here is not 100. So again a common mistake. Okay, so be very particular about adding, subtracting. The next question, this is a very interesting question. The problem here was the person wins 12 kilometer, the woman runs 12 kilometer north and then 6 kilometers south and then 8 kilometers east. Now this is where you say it is a Pythagoras. Very true. It is a Pythagoras question, a right angle triangle. But what about the angle? How do we find the angle? So opposite to the longer side, you would have the bigger angle. So opposite to 8, your angle would be more than 45 degree. Simple. But the question is in which direction is she from her starting point? From her starting point is this, and from this point you have to find out the direction. So means you have to find out this angle, not the other angle. Okay, so this is the angle X that I have marked, is the angle you have to calculate. So first of all, don't get confused here. The next important thing is this says an angle less than 45 north of east. So this is east, this is north. Okay, so this is north, so this is north of east, and this angle would be less than 45 degrees because since this is more than 45, this has to be less than 45. Clear? So another common mistake that we do here, what is the common mistake? That from which direction we have to count the angle. So angle is always counted from the direction which is given in the question. Okay, the next question. This was a question based on cyclicity of remainders. Now what common mistake as we do is 3 raised to power 1, 3, 3 raised to power 2, 9, 3 raised to power 3. Hurriedly I did 81, so it's 27. Then 3 raised to power 4 is 81, 3 raised to power 5 is 243. Now what is the common mistake? The common mistake is first of all finding the raised to power, so not the wrong value. Now how do we find the remainder here? The remainder is divide each of these by 10. So in this case 3 would be the remainder, 9 would be the remainder, 7, 1, then 3. That means the remainders repeat in what set? They repeat in the set of 3, 9, 7, 1, 3, 9, 7, 1 and so on. Okay. Now we call this as cyclicity of remainder. So with every rising power, the remainders would be 3, 9, 7, 1, 3, 9, 7, 1 and so on. Now the question says 3 raised to power 2091. So how do I do? 2091 divided by how many? What is the cyclicity? 4. You have 1, 2, 3 and 4. 3971. 3971. So 4. Now I divide this by 4. What is the remainder I get? So I divide it by 20. 20 goes and then 19. And then you would have 504 and this would be 16 and 3 as remainder. Now this 3 would be not just the answer. Don't stop here. Okay. Now how would we calculate this? This 3 is the value, the remainder of 2019. Now this 3 I have to see here. Okay, 3 raised to power 3. That means in this case, what was the remainder? This case, the remainder was 7. So in this case, the remainder again would be what? The remainder would be 7. Okay, so again, a common mistake. When you are taking the powers in a hurry, sometimes you do wrong powers. I have seen students, when it says 3 raised to 3, some of them say 9, some of them say 27, some of them say 81. So quickly, what you do is silly mistake. So be very careful again. Okay, don't commit silly mistakes. The next question. In this, again a very important doubt. So lots and lots of queries regarding this question. Because what is important here? Important thing is you have a statement which is given here. Now this statement, the first statement itself is sufficient to answer, but I had lots and lots of queries asking how can with the statement 1 just we can say that who is the heaviest. So you have to find out who is the heaviest. Clear? So that's the data sufficiency question again. Now, when I say A and D is heavier than each of B, E and F, that means A is heavier than B, E and F, and then D is also heavier than B, E and F. But it also at the same time mentions none of them is the heaviest. So who is left out? Only one is left out, which is C, and therefore C would be heaviest. Okay, so for this I do not require any other statement. This statement is sufficient in itself. Now the students queried that we don't know the relation between A and D. You need not to know, because you have to find out the heaviest. And it clearly says that of the 5 given here, none of them are the heaviest. So who is the heaviest? The one that is missing. So who is missing? C is missing. So we can find out C is the heaviest. Okay. So that is how we understand that statement 1 is correct. Lots and lots of you have queried that to make this data sufficiency true, we need to have statement 2 as correct to prove statement 1. No. We need not to prove that with the help of statement 2. Okay, clear? Statement 2, try to solve it independently and see what the result comes. But this statement in itself is in totality explaining just there is a hidden element that you have to think and apply. I hope this question is crystal clear. Lots and lots of doubts received on this question. Okay, coming on next. The last question, sequence question. Now here the most common mistake that students do is I take the alternate sequence. Okay. Now in this sequence I say 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay. But quickly sometimes when you are subtracting or adding, you would find it at 8 and you would find that this is a series which is going wrong because it is 8, and your mind would be totally struck saying that, oh, there is a difference of 8 and then 8 repeats, or there is a difference of 6 and then 6 repeats. Somewhere difference calculation, multiplication calculation done silly, by silly mistake, and that makes you struggle to that question. So make sure, keep yourself calm, have a deep meditation before you begin your paper so that you are totally into the paper for next 2 hours. Clear? So don't do such kind of silly mistakes for these questions. Okay. So these were some of the pinpoints that we have focused on for CSAT paper 2. When it comes to the logical kind of questions which are called as the reading comprehension questions in CSAT, the most common mistakes that a student do is they don't understand the difference between a conclusion and an assumption. When the question says its conclusion, that means what is the crux of the passage? What is the main point that is being targeted in the passage? However, when it says assumes, that means this statement is implicit. It is already considered while writing that passage. Okay. So when I say you are going to the school, that means I already assume that you are a student. Okay, so that is an assumption. As a simple example that I am trying to provide you here. So those were some of the questions that we have discussed from your CSAT 2021 paper that we found a lot of students struggled with, and even while solving we had certain doubts that came through. So here was the clarification. We have the links below to help you further with more information and detailed material. For those targeting for mains, our mains curriculum has now started. So interested students can visit the details for test series, and all the tests would be evaluated personally, and I would personally provide a telephonic phone call for all the feedbacks for answer writing, practices for answer writing. Answer writing is highly crucial for your mains, so don't waste your time simply reading onto the key points, but start to practice writing. Specifically those from sciences background do not have a good command over answer writing during their college days, and therefore writing becomes an important element for your mains and scoring in your mains. So prepare well, and if you need any assistance with answer writing, model solutions, we have those details given here. We also provide one-on-one free consultation. So those students who are interested into one-on-one free telephonic consultation, I usually communicate with the students on Saturdays. So you can request an appointment schedule on our email ID admin@examrace.com, form or send a message to our WhatsApp number 999-800-8851. Wish you a very good luck for preparation. Study hard and come up with flying colors. Good luck.